No one would ever believe that the richest man in Seoul cried himself to sleep almost every night. Jun-ho, the 34-year-old billionaire CEO, had everything the world thought mattered: money, a mansion with 20 rooms, luxury cars lined like soldiers in his driveway, and a company that employed thousands. But in his own house, in the place where he was supposed to find peace, he was nothing more than a servant. His family filled the mansion like uninvited guests who had refused to leave. His mother, Madame Sun-hee, always walked around in expensive silk gowns she never bought herself. She would throw herself on the floor, wailing, my son, if you loved me, you would buy me more jewelry. Do you want me to die looking poor?" Then she would wipe her fake tears, grab the credit card, and disappear into the city for shopping. His father, Mr. Dong-hyun, was no better. A man who hadn't worked in 15 years. He spent his mornings soaking in the jacuzzi and his afternoons sleeping in the TV room, eating fruits Jun-ho bought with his sweat. Whenever his son entered, he would grumble, "Why are you disturbing my peace? Go and work harder. I heard your friend's company is doing better than yours. Don't embarrass us." The siblings were worse. Hygiene, the older sister, 32 and unmarried, always reminded Jun-ho that if not for her sacrifices when he was younger, he wouldn't be where he was. Yet, she never lifted a finger in the mansion, only sat with painted nails scrolling her phone. Mina, the younger sister, 28, acted like a queen without a kingdom. Every day she asked for new clothes, new handbags, new perfumes. When Jun-ho tried to refuse, she screamed that he was a stingy brother, despite all his billions. Taekyu, the younger brother, 26, was the most useless of all. He lived in the guest wing with friends who partied every night, drinking and wasting food. Still, he had the audacity to slap Jun-ho's shoulder and say, "Ya, Hyung, when are you buying me my own apartment? I can't stay here forever." It was betrayal in its quietest form. Not knives, not guns, but the constant killing of his soul with words and demands. That night, after another long day at work, Jun-ho returned home past 10 p.m. The house was noisy with laughter and music. His sisters had invited friends, his brother was dancing in the living room, his parents were sitting like royalty. Nobody greeted him, nobody asked if he had eaten. His stomach was empty, but what hurt more was the silence they gave him, as though his only worth was the money in his bank account. He stood at the door for a moment watching them. They didn't even notice him, his own family. Slowly, he turned and went upstairs to his room. He opened the fridge. Empty. Only half a bottle of water. He sat on the bed, buried his face in his hands, and for the 100th time whispered to himself, "Why do I work this hard if nobody loves me?" The next morning, he called his secretary. "Hire me someone. A maid, a cook, I don't care. Someone who will at least make sure I eat in my own house." That's how Serafina walked into the mansion a week later. She was 27, tall, dark-skinned, with calm eyes that spoke of patience and strength. She carried with her a small suitcase, and beside her stood her daughter, Nova, a tiny 8-year-old with sharp eyes and a smile that looked like trouble waiting to happen. The moment they entered, Nova wrinkled her nose dramatically. "Mama, why does this house smell like too many people are living here?" The living room fell silent. Hygiene looked up from her phone. Mina gasped. Taekyu choked on his drink. Madame Sun-hee stood, her voice sharp. "What kind of disrespectful child is this?" But Nova wasn't done. She looked around, counted them with her fingers, then asked loudly, "Uncle, aunties, grandma, grandpa, why are you all still here? Don't married people usually live in their own houses?" Jun-ho almost choked on his tea. A laugh escaped his lips for the first time in months. "Who even hired these people?" Hygiene snapped. "Black people are dirty. They smell. Their food is terrible. Appa, send them back." But Nova folded her tiny arms and marched straight to her. "Auntie, if black people are dirty, why is your face full of makeup bought with my mama's cooking money?" Explain." The room erupted. Taekyu spat his drink. Mina gasped again, and Madame Sun-hee clutched her chest like she had seen a ghost. Serafina tried to hush her daughter, but Jun-ho lifted a hand gently. His lips trembled with amusement. "Let her speak." Nova's eyes sparkled. She turned to Taekyu. Uncle, why do you look tired? Is it from working hard? Oh wait, you don't work. Maybe you're just tired of being lazy. Junho pressed his lips shut, hiding a smile. For the first time, someone was saying the things he never had the courage to. Mina stomped her foot. Appa, we cannot allow this. Look at the insult. But Nova shot back. Auntie, you shout too much. Maybe that's why no man has married you. They're afraid you'll shout them into the grave. That one finished the room. Even Serafina covered her mouth, pretending to cough. Junho leaned back, and for the first time in years, laughter escaped from deep inside him. This tiny girl, this little stranger, had shaken the walls of his toxic mansion in just 10 minutes. He didn't know yet, but Nova's sharp tongue would soon save his life. The mansion had never been this noisy. Not from music, not from parties, but from constant arguments. And at the center of it all was an 8-year-old girl who refused to keep quiet. From the day Serafina and Nova moved in, the balance of power began to shift. Junho finally came home to the smell of warm food on the dining table. Real food, not leftovers from his sister's takeouts or cold pizza his brother's friends had abandoned. Serafina cooked with love, filling the kitchen with the fragrance of stews, fresh bread, and spiced rice. For the first time in years, the billionaire sat down to eat a hot meal prepared just for him. But his family didn't like it. Not one bit. One evening, Junho was enjoying his dinner quietly when Mina stomped in, her face twisted. Appa, what is this smell? Don't tell me you're eating that black woman's food. Before Junho could reply, Nova popped her head from the kitchen, her mouth stuffed with rice. Auntie, if you don't like the smell, maybe your nose is jealous. My mama's food smells like love. Your nose only smells bitterness. Yeah! Mina shrieked, pointing at the child. Who taught you to talk like this? You're so rude. Nova calmly swallowed, then placed her tiny hands on her waist.
No, Auntie.
I'm not rude.
I'm truthful.
If truth feels like insult, maybe you're the problem. Junho nearly choked on his food, trying to hide his laugh. He bent his head, pretending to focus on his plate, but his shoulders were shaking. The family began to meet in secret. Hygiene cornered Madame Sunhee in her room. Iyama, this maid and her daughter are embarrassing us. We cannot allow strangers to insult us in our own house. Sunhee dabbed her eyes with a silk handkerchief. Aish, my heart is broken. After all I suffered to raise Junho. He now brings black strangers into this house. What will people say? Donghyun, who was lying lazily on the bed eating grapes, grumbled. That girl talks too much. One day, she will expose us if we're not careful. They all froze. His words carried more truth than he realized. The next morning, Nova skipped into the living room, her tiny braids bouncing. She saw Taekyu sleeping on the sofa, drooling, with a half-empty bottle of beer on the table. Uncle, she shouted, making him jump. Are you dead? He blinked at her groggily. Yeah, why are you screaming? I was resting. Nova tilted her head innocently. Resting from what? You don't go to work. You don't even wash plates. Maybe you're resting from resting. Everyone in the room burst out laughing, except Taekyu, whose face turned red. This brat, he muttered, but he had no words to defend himself. At night, Junho lay awake in his room, listening to muffled voices from downstairs. He heard his sisters complaining, his mother whining, his brother cursing. He knew they hated Serafina and Nova, but for once he didn't care. In fact, he felt something new. Relief. 4 years, he had been a puppet pulled by his family's strings. They insulted him, controlled him, used him. But now he had 2 strangers under his roof who made him feel human. Serafina's quiet strength was like a balm to his weary soul. She never asked him for anything beyond her salary, never demanded luxury. She worked with grace, moving silently around the mansion, keeping it clean, feeding him well. And Nova, oh Nova, that child was a whirlwind. She said all the things he wished he could say but never dared. She fought battles on his behalf without even realizing it. But while Junho was rediscovering laughter, his family was plotting war. One afternoon, Nova was playing with her dolls on the staircase when she overheard voices from the study room. Listen, Hygiene whispered. If this continues, Appa will forget us. That maid is cooking for him. The daughter is turning him against us. We need to act. Act how?
Mina asked.
Madam son, he sniffled loudly. My son is blind. He cannot see we are his blood. That maid is brainwashing him. We must protect our family wealth before it is too late. Taeku's voice was firm. Simple. We declare him unstable. People already think he works too much. We can tell the board he is losing his mind. Then we take control of the company.
Nova froze.
Her tiny hands tightened around her doll. They wanted to betray their own brother? They wanted to steal his company, his life's work? Her small chest rose and fell quickly. She was only 8, but she understood betrayal when she heard it. Later that evening, during dinner, Nova stared at each of them carefully. The table was full of steaming dishes Serafina had prepared. Junho was eating happily, grateful for peace. But the family's eyes were darting, restless. Nova slammed her spoon on the table suddenly. Everyone jumped. Uncle, Auntie, Grandma, Grandpa, she said, her voice sharp. Do you know what I heard today? Junho looked up, curious. What did you hear, Nova? Nova squinted at Taekyu, then at Hygiene, then at Mina. I heard some people saying they want to declare you crazy so they can take your money. The room froze. Hygiene coughed nervously. This girl is lying.
Mina forstalef.
What nonsense. But Nova leaned forward, her tiny voice cutting like a knife. You can laugh, Auntie, but even if you hide sugar inside a basket, ants will still find it. Lies don't stay hidden. Junho's hand trembled on his spoon. He looked at his family's shocked faces. For the first time, he saw fear in their eyes. Something inside him shifted. The betrayal he had ignored for years suddenly stood naked before him. And his little maid's daughter was the one holding the lantern. The silence in the dining room that night was so heavy, it could suffocate. Junho sat at the head of the table, his chopsticks frozen in midair. His mother's handkerchief was trembling in her fingers, though no tears had yet fallen. Taekyu clenched his jaw, his veins throbbing on his forehead. Hygiene and Mina avoided their brother's eyes, but their shoulders were stiff with fury. And then there was Nova, the tiny storm, calmly sipping her soup as if she hadn't just thrown a grenade into the family's lies. Junho's voice broke the silence, quiet but sharp. Nova, what exactly did you hear? Nova wiped her mouth with the back of her hand. Uncle said you work too much, so they want to tell people you're not okay. Aunties and Grandma agreed. They said if you were called crazy, the company will not be yours anymore. Her words were simple, but they landed like thunder. Hygiene slammed her hands on the table. This child is making things up. Appa, you can't listen to her. Mina leaned forward, her painted lips trembling. She's just a rude girl. Why would we betray you? We are your blood. But Nova only raised an eyebrow. Blood? If blood means stealing, then mosquitoes must be your cousins. The table shook with Junho's sudden laugh, short and bitter. It wasn't the laugh of amusement. It was the laugh of a man who had finally seen through masks. His sisters' faces flushed with shame. Appa, Hygiene cried, her voice shrill. Are you going to believe an 8-year-old over your own family? Junho's eyes hardened. The softness he always carried now dimmed. Why does her story sound truer than your excuses? The family exchanged glances. Madam Sun-hee, who had been silent, finally pressed her handkerchief to her eyes and began to sob loudly. Agu, Agu, my son thinks I am a snake. After carrying you for 9 months, after raising you, you now believe a stranger over me. She beat her chest dramatically. Just kill me now. Nova rolled her eyes so hard it was almost comical. Grandma, you cry too much. Do you get paid for it? Or is crying your full-time job? Even Serafina, who had been trying to stay calm, nearly choked holding back laughter. She quickly pulled Nova close, whispering, Baby, enough. But Junho's lips curved in a small smile. He had grown up with his mother's tears manipulating him. Every wail, every pretend sob had controlled his life. But tonight, an 8-year-old had torn off that mask. The next days in the mansion were war. Hygiene and Mina whispered behind closed doors, shooting hateful glances at Serafina and Nova. Taekyu avoided the little girl altogether, grumbling whenever he saw her. Madam's son. He suddenly developed a mysterious sickness, groaning on the sofa, demanding herbal teas and massages. But Nova was relentless. One morning, she found Taekyu sleeping again on the couch. She tapped his head with a broom. "Uncle, wake up. The floor is not your wife." He shot up, furious. "You brat. Respect me." Nova tilted her head. "Respect is for people who deserve it. What do you even do in this house? Eat? Sleep? Drink? If laziness was a sport, you'd win gold." Even the maid staff passing by burst into laughter. Taekyu stormed out, his ears red. At lunch, Mina pranced in wearing a brand new designer dress, tags still hanging. "Appa, isn't this pretty?" It was very expensive. Nova squinted at her. "Auntie, did you buy it with your husband's money?" "Oh wait," she gasped dramatically. "You don't have one." Mina nearly dropped her plate. Junho coughed into his cup to hide his laugh. Later that evening, Madam's son, he tried another act, clutching her chest. "Agu, my heart, I need money for medicine." Nova, sitting on the stairs, shouted, "Grandma, you should go to the hospital. Maybe the doctors will find out the sickness is fake." The old woman froze mid-cry, her eyes darting. Junho, watching quietly, finally stood. "Iyama, if you're truly sick, I'll take you to the hospital myself tomorrow. We'll run every test." The color drained from her face. "And no, I don't need hospital. Just money will heal me." Junho's chest tightened. For the first time, he didn't feel guilt. He felt anger. That night, Serafina found Junho sitting in the kitchen, his head in his hands. She placed a cup of tea before him. "You've been quiet," she said softly. He sighed. "I always knew they used me, but I closed my eyes and told myself it was love. Now I see it isn't love. It's greed." Serafina's gaze was calm but firm. Family is not always about blood. Sometimes the people who protect you are the real family. He looked up at her, his tired eyes softening. For the first time, someone had said out loud what he had been too afraid to admit. And then, a tiny voice interrupted. "Mr. CEO." Nova marched in, her small pajamas flapping around her ankles. "Don't be sad. You're not alone. Me and Mama are here. We'll fight them with you." Junho blinked at her. "Fight them?" Nova nodded, puffing her tiny chest. "Yes, I'm small, but I'm smart. If they plan evil, I'll hear it. If they lie, I'll expose it. You just keep working, and let me handle these lazy giants." Serafina chuckled nervously. "Nova!" But Junho's lips curved. His heart, which had been drowning for years, suddenly found air. He reached out and touched Nova's tiny shoulder. "Thank you. You're braver than me." Nova grinned proudly. "Of course. I'm a genius." Yet, in the shadows of the mansion, the family wasn't giving up. Hygiene hissed at her siblings later that night. "We must move faster. That brat is watching us. If we wait, she'll ruin everything." Mina clenched her fists. "Then let's strike soon. We'll make Appa sign the documents before that child ruins it. And take you." His pride still burning from Nova's insults, spat, "I don't care what it takes. That little girl needs to be silenced." The storm inside the mansion had only just begun. The mansion looked peaceful from the outside that week, its tall glass windows glowing against the night. But inside, poison brewed in whispers and shadows. Hygiene slammed a folder onto Mina's vanity table. "We can't wait anymore. If Appa refuses to hand over the company willingly, we make him." Mina raised her brows. "And how?" Taekyu grinned wickedly. "Simple. We make that maid and her brat look like thieves. Once they're out, Appa will be all alone again. He'll have no one to whisper into his ears except us." Mina smirked. "Perfect. And once he signs the papers, we'll lock him in the villa with Iyama. People will think he went away to rest. By the time he comes back, if he comes back, everything will belong to us." They clinked their wine glasses together, their laughter sharp like broken glass. But what they didn't know was that Nova was listening from the hallway, crouched behind a golden vase almost bigger than her. Her little heart pounded, but her eyes sparkled. "So this is the game, huh?" she whispered. "Let's play." The next morning, chaos erupted in the mansion. "Appa, Mina shrieked, storming into Junho's study with a staged cry. That maid, Serafina. She stole Iyama's gold bracelet. It's missing. Madam Sun, he appeared seconds later, clutching her chest. My precious bracelet. It was from your late father. Junho, this is betrayal inside betrayal. That woman must go. Serafina stood frozen by the door, her hands trembling. Sir, I would never. But before she could finish, Taekyu barged in, holding a small velvet pouch. Look, I found this under her bed. He opened it to reveal the missing bracelet gleaming under the chandelier light. The room fell into stunned silence. Serafina gasped. That's not mine. Someone planted it there. Mina crossed her arms smugly. Who else would it be? No one goes into your quarters except you and your daughter. She turned to Junho, her eyes wide and innocent. Appa, you must believe us. This maid and her rude little brat want to ruin you. Serafina's knees weakened. She had endured insults, cold nights, and endless labor, but being painted as a thief in front of the man who had finally begun to see her worth, this pierced her deeply. But before Junho could speak, a small voice rang out. Liar, liar, pants on fire. Everyone turned. Nova stepped into the study, dragging something behind her. It was a tape recorder, its red light blinking. I knew you snakes would try something, Nova said, her little chin lifted high. She pressed play. The recorder crackled. Then Taekyu's drunken voice spilled into the room. We'll make that maid and her brat look like thieves. Once they're out, Appa will be all alone again. Then Mina's voice followed. Perfect. And once he signs the papers, we'll lock him in the villa. The room exploded. Junho shot to his feet, fury shaking his shoulders. You, my own blood? His voice thundered through the study. All this time, you've been scheming behind my back. And now you dare frame the only people protecting me? Taekyu stammered, his face pale. And no, it's not what it sounds like. Nova cut him off with a smirk. Uncle, it sounds exactly like what it is. You're dumb and greedy. That's a bad combination. Hygiene lunged at the child, but Serafina stepped forward like a lioness, pulling Nova behind her. Her eyes, usually soft, now burned. Don't you dare touch my daughter. You've already shown what kind of family you are. We won't let you destroy us too. Junho's gaze swept over them. His mother, his sisters, his brother, all trembling under his wrath. For the first time in years, he saw them not as family but as strangers living off his back. Get out. His voice was cold. Final. Appa, Hygiene cried. Out. Junho roared, slamming his fist against the desk. The sound echoed like thunder, making even Madam Sun he flinch. The siblings scattered, humiliated. Only Madam Sun he lingered, her tears flowing. Son, please, we are your blood. Don't throw us away for a maid and her child. Junho's chest rose and fell, his fury trembling into grief. Iyama, if blood means betrayal, then I'd rather bleed alone. He turned his back on her. That night, Serafina tucked Nova into bed, her hands still shaking from the day's events. You scared me today, she whispered. What if they had hurt you? Nova giggled. Don't worry, Mama. I'm small, but I'm sharper than them. Then she looked up with sleepy eyes. Mama, Mr. CEO. He's not really alone anymore, right? Serafina brushed her daughter's hair. No, my love. He's not. Down the hall, Junho stood alone on his balcony, the city lights stretching endlessly below. For the first time in his life, he wasn't thinking of profits, deals, or stock values. He was thinking of a maid's courage and a little girl's fierce heart. But deep inside, he also knew something. His family wouldn't stop here. They had been exposed, yes, but betrayal never dies easily. And somewhere in the dark, Taekyu poured himself another glass of soju, his eyes burning with hatred. That brat thinks she won, he muttered. But the game isn't over. We'll destroy them all. The storm wasn't ending. It was only beginning. The mansion walls were still heavy with silence days after the betrayal was exposed. Junho had locked himself in his study, going through files, tearing contracts apart, and rewriting wills. For once in his life, he wanted his money to mean something more than feeding leeches. But betrayal is like smoke. It lingers, clings, and chokes long after the fire is put out. Taekyu sat hunched in a dingy bar downtown, his shirt wrinkled, his hair messy. He downed another shot of soju and slammed the glass on the counter. "That brat embarrassed me," he growled. "A maid's daughter, 8 years old, and Appa chose her over us." Mina leaned against the booth, twirling her glass lazily. "Don't forget we lost access to his cards. Do you know how humiliating it is to stand in a boutique, swipe your card, and it says declined?" Hygiene sneered. "We need to strike harder. If Appa won't bend to us, then we'll break him." Their mother, Madame Sunhee, sighed dramatically, dabbing her eyes with a silk handkerchief. "My son thinks he's strong, but he's weak when it comes to protecting others. We'll use that maid and her brat, tear them apart, and Appa will crawl back to us, begging." Her voice, though fragile, dripped with venom. Back at the mansion, Serafina stirred a pot of stew in the gleaming kitchen. The aroma filled the air, warm and inviting. Nova sat at the counter, swinging her legs, munching on an apple. "Mama," Nova said between bites, "do you think those greedy hyenas are planning something?" Serafina chuckled softly, though her heart felt uneasy. "You and your big mouth. Stop calling people animals." Nova smirked. "But Mama, they are animals, greedy ones. If they try again, I'll record them and post it on YouTube." Boom! Viral! She threw her hands up dramatically. Serafina burst out laughing, shaking her head. "Nova, you're impossible." Just then, Junho entered the kitchen, looking exhausted but softer than usual. His tie hung loose, his eyes rimmed with sleeplessness. "The food smells amazing," he murmured. Nova leaned forward with a cheeky grin. "Uncle June, did you finally eat something today? Or are you still fasting in sadness like a monk?" Junho blinked, then laughed. An honest, deep laugh Serafina hadn't heard before. For a brief moment, the weight of betrayal lifted. But happiness is fragile. That evening, as Junho drove to a late meeting, Serafina and Nova stayed behind. They didn't know a plan had already been set in motion. The gate bell rang. Serafina, thinking it was a delivery, opened the door. But instead, 2 uniformed police officers stepped in, stern-faced. "Are you Serafina?" one asked. "Yes. You're under arrest for fraud and theft. We received evidence you've been stealing from Mr. Junho's company accounts." Serafina froze, her hands trembling. "What? That's not true. I've never." Before she could finish, Nova leapt forward, her small body standing in front of her mother like a shield. "This is a setup," she shouted. "Those greedy aunties and lazy uncle did this. My mama doesn't even know how to log into a computer properly, let alone steal from accounts." The officers ignored her, pulling handcuffs from their belts. "No, please," Serafina whispered, tears streaming down her face as they dragged her toward the door. Nova clung to her arm. "Mama, don't touch her. She's innocent." The child's cries echoed through the marble halls as Serafina was shoved into a police car. When Junho arrived at the station, fury blazed in his veins. "Release her immediately," he barked. The officers exchanged nervous glances. "Sir, we received documents. Bank transfers linked to her name. Large sums. Forged." Junho snapped. "Do you know who I am? If you don't release her this instant, I'll sue this entire department." Within minutes, Serafina was free, but her face was pale, broken. She sat on a bench, hugging Nova tightly, trembling as though the world had collapsed under her. "Mr. June," she whispered hoarsely. "Your family, they won't stop until they destroy me. Maybe I should leave. I don't want to ruin your life." Junho crouched in front of her, his voice firm but soft. "Serafina, you didn't ruin my life. You saved it." He glanced at Nova, who sniffled but still glared like a warrior. "Both of you." Nova crossed her arms. "I told you, Mama, they're hyenas. But hyenas don't win against lions." Junho's eyes softened. "Then maybe it's time I stop being a lamb." Meanwhile, back at a secret villa, Taekyu smirked as he scrolled through his phone. "Did you see her face when the police dragged her? Priceless." Mina giggled. Soon, Appa will beg us to fix things for him. And when he does, he'll hand over everything. But Madame Sunhee wasn't smiling. She sat by the window, her face cold. You fools. Don't you see? That maid isn't the problem. That child is. She's the brain. As long as she's there, we'll never win. Her words chilled the room. Then what do we do? Hygiene whispered. Madame Sunhee turned, her eyes dark. We get rid of the child. Back in the mansion, Nova sat wide awake in her bed, hugging her teddy bear. She whispered to herself, they think they're clever, but I'm not done yet. If they come for me, I'll be ready. She didn't know how dangerous the game had just become. The night was darker than usual, heavy with storm clouds. The mansion, usually glowing with golden light, looked like a fortress swallowed in shadow. Inside, Junho paced his study, his chest burning with rage. He had uncovered more documents, evidence that his siblings had been siphoning money from his company for months. Every account had their fingerprints. Every fake contract pointed to them. And worst of all, Madame Sun, his own mother, was at the center of it all. My own family, he whispered, gripping the desk until his knuckles turned white. The people I broke my back for. Serafina entered quietly, her face still tired from the arrest, but her eyes steady. Nova trailed behind, rubbing her sleepy eyes but still full of sass. You haven't slept, Serafina said softly. I can't, Junho muttered. They won't stop. And now, they want to hurt Nova. His voice cracked at the thought. Nova climbed onto his lap boldly, tilting her tiny head up at him. Uncle June, don't look like that. You're a CEO. CEOs don't cry, they fire people. Despite himself, Junho chuckled weakly. Serafina smiled faintly, shaking her head at her daughter's bravery. But none of them knew that danger was already at their doorstep. At midnight, the mansion's back gate creaked open. Taekyu and two hired thugs slipped inside, moving like shadows. Mina and Hygiene waited in a van parked nearby, whispering nervously. Are you sure about this? Mina asked, biting her lip. It's just a child, Hygiene sneered. Once she's gone, Appa will fall apart. He'll have no one but us again. In the van's front seat, Madame Sunhee sat stone-faced, her hands folded neatly in her lap. Her eyes glistened, but her voice was ice. Do it. Tonight we win. Inside, Nova stirred in her sleep. Something, maybe instinct, made her sit up suddenly. She heard the faintest creak outside her window. Mama, she whispered urgently, shaking Serafina awake. They're here. Before Serafina could respond, the window rattled and a masked man began to climb in. Serafina screamed, pulling Nova into her arms. Stay back, she cried, but the thugs pushed forward, grabbing at Nova. In seconds, Junho stormed into the room, his fury unleashed. He tackled one thug to the floor with the strength of a man who had carried the weight of a family for too long. The other swung at him, but Serafina hurled a lamp, shattering it across his back. Nova, trembling but defiant, shouted, Touch me again and I'll bite your ear off. The chaos roared through the mansion until flashing lights lit up the windows. Police cars. Junho had already called them earlier, sensing something wasn't right. Within minutes, Taekyu and the thugs were dragged out in handcuffs, cursing and spitting. Mina and Hygiene tried to escape in the van, but officers blocked the road. Madame Sunhee remained still, her face unreadable as she, too, was arrested. At the station, the truth came crashing down. Piles of evidence, fake contracts, stolen money trails, recordings from Nova's clever spying, were laid before the investigators. The siblings broke down one by one, throwing each other under the bus. It was Iyama's idea.
Mina wailed.
No, it was Taekyu. Hygiene screamed. You all enjoyed the money.
Taekyu spat.
And finally, all eyes turned to Madame Sunhee. She stood tall, tears streaking her face. I only wanted my son to need me, she whispered. If he had everything, what use was his mother? Her words cut Junho deeper than any betrayal. He looked at her, broken. You weren't supposed to need to trap me to be needed, Iyama. You just had to love me. Weeks later, the mansion was quieter. The greedy family was gone. Some facing prison, others barred from his company forever. For the first time, Junho ate breakfast without insults thrown at him. The house smelled of Serafina's cooking, and laughter filled the halls thanks to Nova. One morning, as sunlight streamed through the glass walls, Nova sat cross-legged at the table, sipping hot cocoa like a queen. "You know, Uncle June," she said between sips, "you should thank me. If not for me, you'd still be a rich, lonely sheep getting eaten by wolves." Junho chuckled, ruffling her hair. "Thank you, Nova. You saved me more than you'll ever know." Serafina, serving pancakes, smiled warmly. "She's right, you know. Sometimes it takes a child to see what adults can't." "Nova Zmirke." "That's because adults are too busy being dramatic." They burst out laughing, the sound echoing through the once toxic mansion like music. For the first time in his life, Junho realized something. Family isn't just blood. Family is who stands by you when the world tries to break you. And though betrayal had shattered him, Serafina and Nova had pieced him back together. Stronger, wiser, and freer. The CEO was no longer alone.
Hello besties, in this powerful story we learned that never let toxic family trap you with guilt and manipulation. Protect your peace, value those who truly stand by you, and remember that loyalty matters more than blood. Thank you so much for watching. Kindly like, subscribe and share.